18 years ago, my husband threw us out like trash because my son was disabled. He laughed at my suffering and chose another woman. Today, the tables have turned. I have returned to watch him crumble, piece by piece, right in front of the son he once despised. Before the story begins, please write in the comments what city you're watching this from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can grow and bring you even more compelling stories. The smell of antiseptic and industrial floor cleaners stung my nostrils, but this was not the scent of an ordinary hospital. This was the aroma of luxury emanating from the Platinum Wing of Lakeside General, the best private hospital in Chicago. I sat calmly on the cream-colored leather sofa. My hands held a health magazine, but my eyes weren't really reading the words. I glanced at the gold watch circling my wrist. The hands pointed to 10 a.m. He should have arrived by now. Someone I hadn't seen in 18 years. Someone who was once the center of my world before he smashed it all to dust. My name is Eleanor. I used to be just a frumpy, stay-at-home mom. I spent my days in the kitchen and caring for a sick child. But look at me now. I was wearing a tailored burgundy pantsuit. My hair was perfectly styled, my shoes gleaming. The weak Eleanor was gone. The automatic glass doors at the front of the lobby slid open. A gust of wind blew in. I saw the figure. He hobbled. His appearance was a far cry from my memory. He used to be handsome, well-built, and always proud of his physique. Now his back was slightly hunched, his skin dull and sallow. His once thick hair was now thin and graying. He wore a frayed shirt, its color faded. His slacks looked too big for him, as if his body had shrunk drastically. It was Mark, my ex-husband. He wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, looking annoyed. That must be Bella, the woman who stole Mark from me. Bella also looked old and tired. Her once heavily made-up face was now lined and weary. They looked like a couple defeated by life. Mark walked toward the reception desk. He argued quietly with the administrative clerk. I could hear his raspy voice. He coughed several times, a deep, painful-sounding cough. It was the sign of a body being ravaged by disease. I closed my magazine and placed it on the table. I stood up and straightened my jacket. I deliberately walked across the path they would have to take. My steps were firm. The sound of my heels clicked against the marble floor. Click, clack, click. Mark turned when he heard my footsteps. His eyes narrowed. He looked me up and down. At first, he seemed confused. He probably thought I was one of the doctors or a hospital executive. But when our eyes met, I saw a flicker of recognition in his. His eyes widened. His mouth hung slightly open. "Eleanor!" he called out hesitantly. I stopped. I stared at him blankly. No smile, no anger, just the cold gaze of a stranger. "Long time no see, Mark," I replied curtly. Mark let out a small, condescending laugh, just like he used to. He nudged Bella's arm. "Look, Belle, it's my ex-wife, the one we kicked out. Wow, you clean up nice. So, what are you doing here? Are you on the cleaning crew now, or selling insurance?" My blood boiled at his insult, but I had trained myself for years for this moment. I couldn't get emotional. Emotion was a sign of weakness. "I'm here on business," I answered calmly. Mark stepped closer. The smell of cigarettes and sweat emanated from his body. He looked at me with a disgusting, probing stare. "What business? Selling pretzels at the cafeteria stand?" He laughed again, louder this time, causing a few other visitors to turn their heads. "Don't act all high and mighty, Eleanor. I know where you came from. You're just some small-town girl who got lucky marrying me." I remained silent, letting him spew his poison. The more he insulted me, the sweeter my revenge would be. Suddenly, his face twisted into a sneer. He looked around me, as if searching for something. "By the way," he said in a contrived tone, "where's that crippled kid of yours? What's his name?" "Leo." "Yeah, the one with the twisted leg." My hands clenched into fists at my sides. He could insult me, but insulting my son was a fatal mistake. "He has a name, Mark," I said sharply. "Whatever." Mark waved his hand dismissively. "He's probably dead by now anyway. A sick kid like that couldn't have lasted long, especially with a poor mother like you. He must have died because you couldn't afford his medical bills, right?" Bella giggled along. "Come on, Mark. Don't bring it up. I feel sorry for her." Maybe she's here to ask for donations to pay off her son's old medical debts. Mark roared with laughter, his voice echoing in the quiet lobby. Good point. Hey, Eleanor, if your crippled kid is dead, that's great. One less burden in your life. You should be thanking me for divorcing you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be free like this. The words slid so easily from his mouth. He called the potential death of his own flesh and blood a stroke of luck. He called my son a burden. Even the devil might blush at such evil words. People around us started whispering. They looked at Mark with disapproval, but he didn't care. He felt he was the greatest. He felt he still had power over me, just like 18 years ago. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with calm. I smiled faintly, a smile that made Mark stop laughing. You're dead wrong, Mark, I said softly but with emphasis. Wrong about what? He challenged. My son is alive. He grew up to be a man far greater than his biological father ever was, I replied. Mark snorted. Greater? Greater at what? Begging at traffic lights with that leg? What kind of job could he possibly get? You'll find out soon enough, I said. I glanced at my watch again. And one more thing, Mark. You'd better watch your mouth. This hospital has strict rules about decorum. You wouldn't want to get thrown out before you're even examined, would you? Mark's face turned red. He didn't like being lectured. Are you threatening me? Who do you think you are? I'm a patient here. I'm paying. You're paying? I asked with a skeptical tone. I heard you came here with a charity care application to ask for a fee reduction. Mark's eyes bulged. He was shocked that I knew his secret. Bella immediately looked nervous. How did you know that? Bella snapped. I didn't answer. I just shrugged. The walls here have ears. Anyway, enjoy your wait, Mark. I hope the doctor who sees you is kind. I turned my body and walked away, leaving them there. Hey, I'm not finished talking to you, Mark yelled. I didn't look back. I continued walking toward the staff-only elevator. I swiped my access card. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside and turned around. Before the doors closed, I saw Mark still standing there, his face red with rage. He knew nothing. He didn't know he had just walked into the lion's den. He didn't know that the disabled child he mocked was in this very building. He didn't know that his very life now rested in our hands. Inside the rising elevator, I saw my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were glassy, not with sadness, but with suppressed rage. The memories of the past came rushing back. The words crippled kid and dead by now reopened an old wound that had never healed. The wound from 18 years ago. The wound from that stormy night, the night he shattered my heart and my son's. I closed my eyes. The past replayed like a black and white film in my head. I had to remember it. I had to remember every detail of that pain. It was my primary fuel. It was the reason I was standing here now, with the power to destroy him. Just you wait, Mark. You asked where my son is? You're going to meet him. And when you do, you'll wish the earth would swallow you whole. The elevator carried me upward, but my mind plunged back into the past. 18 years ago, I was 25 years old then. We lived in a small, rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. The place was damp, the paint peeling from the walls, but I tried to make it comfortable for Leo, our son, who was just 5 years old. That night, the rain was pouring down, a torrential downpour. Lightning flashed, making the window panes rattle. Leo was sitting on the floor, playing with his worn-out wooden toy car. His small legs looked different. His right leg had not developed properly, forcing him to crawl or walk with great difficulty. The front door slammed open. Mark was home. He was soaking wet, but it wasn't the rain that made his face look so terrifying. It was an expression of pure hatred. He didn't say hello. He immediately threw his work bag onto a chair. He walked to the dining table where I was preparing warm tea. I'm sick of it, Eleanor, he yelled suddenly. I jumped in shock. Some of the hot tea spilled on my hand. What is it, Mark? Why are you angry the moment you get home? I'm sick of this miserable life. I'm sick of this smelly apartment. And I'm most sick of looking at him. Mark pointed at Leo. Leo, startled, hugged his toy tightly. He looked at his father with terrified eyes. Daddy, he whimpered softly. Don't call me Daddy, Mark barked. I'm ashamed to have a son like you. Look at that leg. It's disgusting. All my friends at the office have normal kids, kids who can run, who can play soccer. Why did I have to get a defective one? My heart shattered hearing that. I immediately ran to hug Leo, covering my son's ears. Enough, Mark. Don't talk like that in front of him. It's not Leo's fault. This is a test from God, I said, crying. A test? This is a curse. Mark slammed the glass of tea I had prepared. Shards scattered across the floor. I can't take it anymore. My salary is gone just paying for his useless therapy. He's never going to get better, Eleanor. His leg will be twisted forever. Mark reached into his wet pants pocket. He pulled out a crumpled brown envelope. He threw it in my face. "What is this?" I asked, trembling. "Divorce papers," he answered coldly. "Sign them. I want us to separate." My world collapsed. Divorce? But why, Mark? We can talk about this. If it's about money, I can get a job. I can wash dishes or work in a factory. It's not just about the money, Mark cut in. I'm getting married again. My breath caught in my throat. Married again? Yes, to Bella. She's a wealthy widow. She owns the construction supply company I deliver to. She's beautiful, she's rich, and most importantly, she can give me a normal child, not a defective product like Leo. Defective product. Those words hit me harder than a physical blow. How could a father call his own son a defective product? "You're cheating on me?" I whispered. "Call it what you want. I need a future, Eleanor. And my future isn't with you or your crippled kid. Bella wants me, but she doesn't want any baggage from the past. So, you both have to leave. Leave now." I looked at the window. The thunderstorm was still raging outside. "Mark, it's the middle of the night. It's pouring. Leo isn't feeling well. Let us stay for just one night. We'll leave in the morning." Mark shook his head without a shred of compassion. "No. Bella is coming to pick me up soon. She wants to see this place empty of your junk. Mark, please." I knelt at his feet, throwing away my pride for my son. "Have pity on Leo. He's your son, Mark, your own flesh and blood." Mark kicked my shoulder, sending me sprawling. Leo cried out loudly when he saw me fall. "Get him out of here! His crying is hurting my ears." I got up with what little strength I had left. I realized it was useless to beg a stone. Mark was no longer my husband. He had become a monster. I went into the bedroom with tears streaming down my face. I stuffed a few clothes into a large plastic bag. We didn't own a suitcase. I took the small amount of savings I had hidden under the mattress. It wasn't much. Maybe enough for food for 2 days. I picked up Leo. The boy wrapped his arms tightly around my neck, his body trembling with fear. "Mommy, is Daddy mad?" Leo whispered. "Is Daddy mad because my leg is bad?" That innocent question tore my heart apart. I kissed his cheek. "No, honey, Daddy is just sick. He doesn't know what he's saying. You are a wonderful boy. Your leg is a leg from heaven." We walked out of the bedroom. Mark was standing at the front door, smoking casually. He looked at us with disgust. "Is that everything? Don't leave anything behind. I don't want to keep any garbage," he said. I looked into his eyes one last time. "You'll regret this, Mark. So help me God, you will regret this." Mark just snorted. "Regret getting rid of a parasite? Never. Go on, go die in the street for all I care." He pushed us outside and slammed the door. The rain immediately drenched us. The cold pierced through to our bones. I held Leo inside my jacket, trying to shield him from the water. We stood on the small porch, but Mark opened a window and yelled, "Don't shelter there! Get off my property!" I dragged my feet onto the muddy street. It was dark, cold, and empty. There was only the sound of thunder and Leo's crying. We walked without a destination, tears and rainwater mixing on my face. Suddenly, a luxury sedan pulled up in front of the apartment. A woman got out with an umbrella. It was Bella. She saw me, soaked to the bone on the side of the road. She smiled smugly. "Oh, so this is the wife?" Bella asked Mark, who had come out to greet her. How pathetic, like a drowned rat. Mark wrapped his arm around Bella's waist. "Don't look, darling. You'll dirty your eyes. Let's go inside." They went into the warm apartment, leaving us in the middle of the storm. That night, we finally found shelter in an empty bus stop. Leo had a high fever. His body was burning up. I held him all night, trying to transfer my body heat to him. In the darkness of that bus shelter, watching the relentless rain, I made a vow. I held Leo's small hand. Listen to me, honey. Today we were humiliated. Today we were thrown away. But I promise you, I swear to God, one day the man who threw us away will be crawling at your feet. I will do anything. I will work until my bones break. You will become a great man. You will become a doctor who can heal people, unlike your father, whose soul is sick. Leo looked at me with his listless eyes. He nodded weakly. Yes, Mommy. Leo wants to be a doctor. Leo wants to heal Leo's leg so he can take care of Mommy. We cried together under the leaking roof of that bus shelter. It was the lowest point of my life, but it was also the turning point. The pain of that night turned into a fire that never went out, a fire that fueled my spirit for 18 years. And now, that fire was ready to burn the one who lit it. I stepped out of the elevator on the 3rd floor. This floor was much quieter than the bustling main lobby. This was the Administrative and Medical Records Center. White fluorescent lights illuminated a long hallway flanked by metal shelves and frosted glass doors. The air here was cool and dry, smelling of old paper and printer ink. My destination was the room at the end of the hall, the head of medical administration's office. But before I got there, a young nurse in a light blue uniform stopped me. It was Sarah, one of our most trusted people in the hospital. Her face looked tense. She clutched a thick red folder to her chest. "Good morning, Mrs. Vance," she greeted me politely. She dipped her head slightly, a sign of genuine respect, not fear. "Morning, Sarah," I replied. "Is the file ready?" Sarah nodded quickly. She looked left and right, making sure no one else could hear our conversation. "Yes, ma'am. I just picked it up from registration. The patient's data was just entered 10 minutes ago." I held out my hand. Sarah handed me the red folder. It felt heavy as the sins of its owner. "Thank you, Sarah. You can go back to your work. Don't let anyone know I have this file," I ordered. "Of course, ma'am, but there's one more thing," Sarah said hesitantly. "What is it?" "This patient, a Mr. Mark Peterson." Sarah said the name with a note of dislike. "He caused a scene at the registration desk earlier. He yelled at our staff because he thought the process was too slow. He claimed to know the hospital director, but there was no record of him in our VIP system." I smirked. Old habits die hard. Mark always thought he was a king, even when he had no castle. "Let it be, Sarah. Consider it some pre-show entertainment. Go back to your post." Sarah nodded and hurried away. I took the folder into an empty small conference room. I sat in a swivel chair and placed the folder on the gleaming glass table. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with anticipation. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I could look into the guts of my ex-husband's life without him knowing. I opened the folder slowly. The first page was his personal data. Name, Mark Peterson. Age, 48. Occupation, self-employed, listed as unstable. Address, a rented unit in a rundown part of town. I knew that area. It was a flood-prone neighborhood, a world away from the lavish house he used to boast about when he kicked me out. My eyes moved to the second page, medical history. I read, line by line, the diagnosis from the ER doctor who had seen him last week before referring him here. The doctor's handwriting was cursive, but I was used to reading it. Primary diagnosis: uncontrolled type 2 diabetes mellitus. Complications: diabetic nephropathy, end-stage renal disease, stage 5, kidney failure. Physical condition: gangrenous wound on the left foot, necrosis of the 4th and 5th toes. I was stunned. Stage 5 kidney failure. That meant his kidneys had completely shut down. Toxins were building up in his blood every second. The only way to survive was with lifelong dialysis or a kidney transplant. And seeing the condition of his rotting foot, he was also at risk of amputation. What a deadly irony. He used to mock my son for his imperfect leg. He called Leo the one with the twisted leg. He was disgusted by the way my son walked. Now his own foot was rotting. His own foot was eating away at his life. God has a dark but fair sense of humor. Karma doesn't arrive by express mail, but it always arrives on time. I turned to the next page. This was the most interesting part, the financial section. There, written in big red ink, no insurance, ACA plan inactive. I frowned. Mark used to work for a large corporation. He always bragged about his premium health insurance. Why did he have no coverage now? I read the additional notes from the administrative staff below. Patient has defaulted on insurance premiums for 5 years. Private insurance policy was terminated due to lapse. Patient claims to have no cash funds for inpatient deposit. I leaned back in my chair. The bigger picture was becoming clear. Mark was broke. Utterly and completely broke. Where did all the money go? Where did the marital assets go, the ones that should have been mine and Leo's, but that he stole completely? The answer was in the social status attachment. Guarantor. Bella, wife. Interview notes. Patient's wife refuses to sign the personal guarantee of payment. Patient's wife states that the house and car were sold last month and the money was used to pay off failed business debts. I let out a soft, dry laugh. Bella, the woman who once arrived in a luxury car with an expensive umbrella, now wouldn't even vouch for her husband. She had bled Mark dry. The supply company Mark was so proud of must have gone bankrupt. The money from the sale of our old house must have been squandered on their lifestyle. Now that Mark was sick and needed money, Bella was starting to wash her hands of him. That woman only ever loved Mark's money, not the man. Mark had left a diamond for a rock, and now that rock was crushing him. My eyes fell on a form tucked into the very back, a charity care application, a financial hardship waiver. Mark was requesting that the hospital provide a special discount or social fund assistance for his dialysis treatment. He wanted pity. He wanted to be a parasite in my hospital. At the bottom of the form was an empty approval section. It read, "Reviewed and approved by Head of the Department of Internal Medicine." I stared at that blank space for a long time. This was it. This was the weapon. Mark couldn't get treatment here without that signature. He had no money. He had no insurance. All he had was this application. His life and death depended on the signature of the department head, and he had no idea who the department head at this hospital was. I closed the red folder with a satisfying thud. I had found his weak point. Not just his physical illness, but his bankruptcy and his desperation. He was on the edge of a cliff. One small push, and he would fall into the abyss. I stood up, grabbed the folder, and walked out of the room. My steps felt light. I felt like a general who had just obtained a map of the enemy's headquarters. I imagined Mark's face when he would learn the truth. I imagined his face when he realized that the person holding the pen to sign his fate was the person he once called trash. I walked down the hallway toward the east wing of the hospital, the executive wing. That's where my son was working. My son, who was once scorned, was now the arbiter of his father's destiny. Along the way, I remembered our struggle. I remembered working as a dishwasher at 3 restaurants at once. I remembered Leo's small hands helping me fold the laundry we did for our neighbors. I remembered the nights we ate only rice with salt so we could save money for Leo's future medical school tuition. We crawled out of the mud. We bled to get to where we are. And now, the person who threw us into that mud was here, asking for help with his dirty hands. It's not that easy, Mark. Not that easy at all. I arrived at a large, sturdy mahogany door. On it was a gleaming gold plaque. Dr. Leo Vance, M.D., Internal Medicine and Nephrology. I caressed the name with pride. This was my son's name, a name raised with the tears and prayers of a cast-out mother. I knocked 3 times, a firm, steady knock. "It's time to make our plans, son. Your father has arrived, and he's brought his own neck to our noose. Come in." A deep, authoritative voice called from within. I opened the mahogany door. The scent of fresh coffee and a lavender air freshener greeted me. The office was spacious and elegant. A large bookshelf filled with thick medical literature lined one wall. On the other, a massive window offered a panoramic view of the city. Morning sunlight streamed in, creating a warm atmosphere that contrasted with the coldness of the hospital hallway. Behind a large mahogany desk, a young man sat reviewing a stack of documents. He wore a crisp light blue shirt under his proud white doctor's coat. A stethoscope was draped casually around his neck. His face was clean-shaven, his jawline sharp, his eyes intelligent yet gentle. He was Leo, my son. When he saw me enter, his serious expression instantly softened. A warm smile spread across his lips. He immediately put down his pen and stood up. "Mom," he said softly. He walked around the desk to greet me. His stride was confident. If you looked very closely, you could still see a slight imbalance in the gait of his right leg, a remnant of the corrective surgery we did 5 years ago. But he no longer dragged his foot. He no longer needed a cane. He stood tall at 6 feet, much taller than me. He hugged me tightly. The scent of masculine cologne and antiseptic emanated from him. I patted his back gently. "Are you busy, son?" I asked as we separated. "For you, Mom. I always have time," he replied, guiding me to the plush guest sofa in the corner. "What is it? It's not like you to come to my office at this hour. You're usually busy with financial reports at the director's office." I sat down and placed the red folder I'd been carrying on the coffee table. Leo glanced at the folder, then looked into my eyes. He was smart. He knew from my expression that something serious was happening. "A VIP patient?" Leo guessed. "You could say that. But not a VIP because of his money," I answered meaningfully, "but because of his past." Leo frowned. "What do you mean?" I pushed the red folder toward him. "Read it. You'll understand." Leo picked up the folder. He opened it with the calm, professional movements of a doctor. His eyes scanned the first line of patient data. I saw a drastic change in his face. Calm at first, then his eyes widened slightly, his jaw tightened. His hand holding the paper gripped it tighter, wrinkling the edge. He was silent for a long time, frozen, staring at the name printed there, Mark Peterson. A name he had probably tried to erase from his memory, but which was etched as the source of his childhood trauma. Leo took a long, deep breath and exhaled sharply through his nose. He said nothing, but he continued to read the following pages. He read the diagnosis, the complications, and the pathetic financial section. When he finished, he closed the folder slowly. He placed it back on the table and looked at me. His eyes glinted with a mixture of anger, pain, and disbelief. "He's here?" Leo asked, his voice low, trembling with suppressed emotion. "In the waiting room downstairs," I replied. "With his wife, that Bella woman." Leo snorted cynically. He stood up and walked toward the large window. He turned his back to me, staring at the city below. "Stage 5 kidney failure," Leo muttered. "Uncontrolled diabetes. His foot is rotting." He turned to me, his face hard. "Do you know what he said to me back then, Mom? That night, he said my leg was disgusting. He said he was ashamed to have a son who couldn't walk normally, and now he's going to lose his own leg." "That's God's punishment, Leo," I said softly. "And he's asking for a fee reduction." Leo gestured at the folder with his chin. "He's asking for my signature to save his worthless life." "Exactly. Without your signature, he can't get dialysis here. Other hospitals will turn him away too, because he has no down payment. His life is at the tip of your pen." Leo sat down again across from me. He leaned forward. "What do you want me to do, Mom? Turn him away? Reject him? I could have security throw him out on the street right now, just like he threw us out." I shook my head. "That's too easy, son. If we throw him out now, he'll just feel like a victim. He won't realize who we are. He won't feel the real pain. Then admit him," I said coldly. "Let him come into the examination room. Let him hope. Let him think he's going to be helped by a kind doctor. Give him the highest hopes, then drop him as hard as you can." Leo was silent for a moment, processing my plan. Slowly, a faint smile appeared on his face. It wasn't the friendly smile of a doctor, but the smile of a son ready to claim his justice. "I understand," Leo said. "I won't approve his financial assistance form through the administration staff. I'll call him in here. I'll examine him myself." "Exactly," I agreed. "He doesn't know you're a doctor here. He doesn't know your full name in the system. All he knows is that he needs the approval of the department head. Make him tremble with fear with his medical diagnosis. Make him feel small." Leo nodded. "I'll explain just how severe his condition is. I'll tell him that without expensive treatment, he will die a slow, painful death. I will see the fear in his eyes. And when he's desperate," I added, "when he's begging for mercy, that's when you reveal who you are." Leo leaned back again. He looked at his own hands, the hands of a surgeon and specialist who had saved hundreds of lives. the same hands that once clutched a worn-out wooden toy while crying in the rain. "Do you remember, Mom?" Leo asked suddenly, his voice softening. "When we lived in that tiny apartment with the leaky roof? When you had typhoid fever but wouldn't go to the doctor because you were saving the money for my therapy?" My eyes welled up, remembering those hard times. I remember, back then, I used to wonder why my father was so cruel. What did I do wrong? I started to hate my own leg. "Mom, I even wanted to cut it off so you wouldn't have to struggle to take care of me." A tear escaped, and I quickly wiped it away. "Don't talk like that, son." "But you were the one who made me strong," Leo continued. "You told me my leg was a leg from heaven. You worked day and night until your hands were rough. You never gave up on me. So today, this isn't just about my revenge. It's about defending your honor." He picked up the red folder again. This time, he held it with a steady hand. "I'll do it. I'll see him. I'll make sure he knows that the disabled child he threw away is now the only person who can save him, and I will choose not to." I smiled with pride. My son was a man. He was no longer a scared little boy. He was a strong, principled man. "Good," I said. "I'll be there. I'll sit in this room, with my back to the door when he comes in. I want to see his face when he realizes he's walked into the lion's den." Leo pressed the intercom button on his desk. His assistant's voice came through. "Yes, doctor? Sarah, please page the patient named Mark Peterson from the administrative waiting list downstairs. Tell him the head of the department is willing to review his case personally right now. Prioritize him." "Yes, doctor. I'll page him immediately." Leo switched off the intercom. He looked at me. "Prepare yourself, Mom. He'll be here any minute." I smoothed my jacket. I took a deep breath, preparing myself mentally. My heart was racing, but not with fear. It was the adrenaline of battle. The gates of hell were about to open for Mark, and we held the key. "Let's welcome our special guest, Mom," Leo said as he put on his surgical mask, covering half his face. He wanted to hide his identity until the very last second. I turned my guest chair to face away from the entrance. I picked up a magazine to cover my face, pretending to be a busy guest or colleague. We waited in silence. The seconds ticked by. The sound of footsteps approached in the hallway, a heavy, limping gait, dragged with difficulty. The faint sound of a woman's complaining voice could be heard. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," Leo said coldly. The door opened. The game had begun. The office door opened slowly. The sound of the well-oiled hinges signaled the beginning of a new act in the drama of our lives. I sat in the guest chair facing the large window, my back to the entrance. I deliberately did not turn around. I wanted to hear his voice first. I wanted to hear his arrogance before I shattered it. "Please have a seat, sir." "Ma'am," Sarah's voice, the nurse who escorted them, sounded polite yet cold. The sound of heavy feet shuffled across the thick carpet. There was an irregular pause in each step. Drag, step, drag, step. That had to be Mark. His rotting foot made it impossible for him to walk normally. The smell hit me immediately. Even though the room was fragrant with lavender and the air conditioning was on full blast, a foul, medicinal odor still managed to seep in. It was the smell of necrotic tissue, the smell of flesh surrendering to disease. "Wow, this doctor's office is so fancy." Bella's shrill voice broke the silence. "Look at this sofa, Mark. It's real leather. The doctor must be loaded, not like that guy at the county clinic yesterday." "Hush! Don't be so tacky," Mark scolded, his breath labored. "Of course it's fancy. This is a top-tier hospital. I told you my connections here are solid." The department head probably agreed to see me because he knows who I am. I held back a bitter laugh. He was still bluffing. Who did he think he was? A president? An oil tycoon? He was just a bankrupt patient begging for his life. I heard the sound of a chair being dragged loudly. Mark plopped himself down in the chair in front of Leo's desk. Leo sat there calmly, a medical mask covering half his face and reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked utterly professional and detached. "Good afternoon," Leo greeted. His voice was deliberately lowered, sounding flat and emotionless. He didn't look Mark in the eye, instead focusing on the file in his hands. "Afternoon, Doc," Mark replied in a chummy tone. "I'm Mark Peterson, the referral patient who made a bit of a fuss downstairs. You know how it is, Doc. The admin staff sometimes doesn't understand priorities. I need urgent attention. I've read your file, Leo cut in sharply, ignoring Mark's small talk. Your condition is extremely poor, Mr. Peterson. Why did you wait so long to come in? Mark stammered. Well, Doc. Busy with business. I have a lot of projects, so my health got a little neglected. But don't worry, I'm tough. This is just a small wound on my foot that won't heal. A small wound? Leo repeated cynically. The 4th and 5th toes of your left foot are necrotic, completely dead. They're black, aren't they? And the smell. I can smell it from here, even through my mask. There was a brief silence. I could imagine Mark's face turning red with shame. His sky-high pride had just been scratched. It's because my bandage hasn't been changed since yesterday, Mark excused himself. Look, Doc, the bottom line is, I need immediate action. Dialysis and surgery on my foot. But there's a small technical issue with the administration regarding the deposit. I heard that you, as the head, have the authority to grant, let's call it, a special policy for priority patients. You're requesting financial assistance? Leo asked, getting straight to the point. Not requesting, Doc. Borrowing the facility, Mark corrected quickly, his pride too great to admit he was poor. My assets aren't liquid right now. My money is tied up in some real estate investments. So I just need your signature on this charity care form so the procedures can get started. Once my money is freed up, I'll pay it all back. In cash. Lie after lie. I was sick of hearing it. I closed the magazine I had been holding. The charade was over. It was time for me to enter the stage. Real estate investments? My voice cut through their conversation. I spoke without turning around. You mean that rented apartment by the river that floods every spring? The atmosphere in the room froze. Who is that? Mark asked, startled. He had only just realized someone else was in the room besides the nurse. Doc, who is this woman? Another patient? Why is she meddling in my affairs? She is not a patient, Leo answered calmly. She is the majority shareholder of this hospital. And she knows you very well, Mr. Peterson. Mark fell silent. My chair swiveled around slowly. The movement was deliberate, dramatic, like a scene from one of the movies he used to love. My face emerged from behind the high back of the chair. I stared at him directly, a sharp gaze that held 18 years of resentment. Mark's eyes widened, his jaw dropped. His pale, sickly face now looked as though he had seen a ghost. Eleanor, he hissed, his voice caught in his throat. Hello again, my dear ex-husband, I greeted him coldly. It's a small world, isn't it? Bella, sitting beside him, jumped. She looked at me with a mixture of fear and hatred. You're that woman from the lobby. Why are you here? Are you stalking us? Don't flatter yourself, Bella, I replied casually. I stood up and walked toward Leo's desk. I stood beside my son, placing a hand on his shoulder, as if to affirm that we were an inseparable team. This is my office. This is my hospital. You are the ones who walked into my den. Mark stared at me in disbelief. You're a shareholder? Don't be ridiculous, Eleanor. You're just a dumb woman who never finished college. You must have scammed some rich guy and become his mistress, right? I laughed, a loud, piercing laugh. You always judge people with that filthy mind of yours. After you threw me out, Mark, I worked hard. I went back to school. I built a catering business, then real estate, and now healthcare. I don't need a man to become wealthy, unlike you, who needs a rich woman just to survive. I glanced at Bella, who was now looking down, not daring to meet my gaze. I took Mark's medical file from Leo's desk. I opened it roughly. Let's talk facts, Mark. Forget the bluster about investments and projects. Let's talk about your rotting body. I read the contents of the file aloud, as if I were reading a death sentence. Blood sugar level, 450. That's a terrifying number, Mark. Your blood is basically syrup, not red blood. Your kidney creatinine is at 12. Normal is under 1.5. Your kidneys have turned to stone. They're not functioning at all. Do you know what that means? Mark trembled. Cold sweat began to bead on his forehead. Stop it. It means your body is poisoning itself, I continued without mercy. Every second you breathe, urea toxins are building up in your brain, your heart, your lungs. That's why your breath smells like urine. That's why you're often short of breath. You are drowning in your own filth." "Shut up!" Mark yelled. He tried to stand, but his leg was in too much pain. He slumped back into his chair, wincing. I walked around the desk, approaching his chair. I stood right next to his ear. "And your foot? You called it a small wound? The tissue there is dead, Mark. It's rotten. Bacteria are eating your flesh down to the bone. If it's not amputated soon, the bacteria will spread to your blood. It's called sepsis, and if that happens, you'll be dead in a matter of hours." "Enough!" Mark screamed. He covered his ears with both hands. "I don't want to hear it. Doctor, do something. Don't let this crazy woman talk." He looked at Leo with a pleading expression, hoping the doctor before him would defend him, hoping for some sort of male solidarity. "Doc, please help me. Sign the form. I want to get better. I promise I'll pay. Get this woman out of here, Doc. She's just trying to break me down. This is unethical." Leo didn't move. He just stared at Mark with an unreadable expression. I returned to my position in front of the desk. I looked at Mark with a sense of satisfaction spreading through my chest. Seeing him scared, seeing him beg, seeing him so fragile, this was payment in full for every tear I had shed. "Are you afraid to die, Mark?" I asked. Mark looked at me with watery eyes. His arrogance had crumbled. All that was left was the primal human fear of death. "Who isn't afraid to die?" he answered softly. "I still want to live. I still have a child I need to." He stopped his sentence, probably realizing he had no child he was caring for. The child he had with Bella never existed, as she was infertile, a fact I knew from old neighborhood gossip. "A child?" I cut in. "Which child? The one you threw out onto the street in a thunderstorm?" Mark's face went ashen. He remembered. Of course he remembered. That was in the past, Eleanor. "Why are you so vengeful?" "To err is human. Erring is when you forget to buy milk," I snapped. "Throwing your own child out because he's disabled isn't an error. It's a crime. It's an atrocity." My breath was coming fast. I had to calm myself. I couldn't lose control. I had to remain elegant in my destruction of him. "Do you know what the greatest irony is, Mark?" I asked, my voice calm again. "You used to mock my son's body. You said his leg was ugly. You said he was useless. Now look at your own leg. Who's disabled now? Who's useless now?" Mark looked down. He saw his thickly bandaged foot. The bandage was soaked with yellow fluid and blood. "I need treatment, Eleanor," he said pitifully. "If you really are a shareholder here, please consider it charity. I was your husband. We used to love each other." "Love?" I laughed without humor. "You loved my young body. When I became a frumpy mother, you threw me away. Now you're begging for mercy in the name of a past love?" "There was no love between us, Mark. Only a karmic debt." I pointed to the charity care form on the desk. "You want that signature? You want your life saved?" Mark nodded quickly. Yes, please, I'll do anything. Anything at all. I'll apologize. I'll get on my knees and beg if I have to." I smiled faintly. "It's not me you need to beg, but the person with the medical authority in this room." I turned to Leo. I gave him a slight nod. It was time. The stage was set. Mark's spirit was broken. He was desperate. He was ready for the final blow that would kill his soul before the disease killed his body. Leo slowly raised his hands. He touched the straps of his mask. His movements were slow, deliberate. He took off his reading glasses and placed them on the desk. Mark looked at the doctor, confused. He didn't understand what was happening. He still thought this doctor was a neutral stranger. "You said you want to live, Mr. Peterson?" Leo asked. His voice had changed. It was no longer deep and contrived. It was his real voice. A voice Mark might vaguely remember from the past, but now deeper, more mature. "Yes, Doc. I want to live," Mark answered. "That's a shame," Leo said as he pulled his mask down completely, revealing his entire face, "because I'm not sure I want to save the man who once prayed for me to die." The face was there in plain sight. A strong nose, just like Mark's, the same piercing eyes. The jawline, a genetic inheritance. It was Mark's face, but younger, healthier, and better. Mark froze. His eyes traced every inch of Leo's face. His brain struggled to connect the dots of memory. Then his gaze fell to the nameplate on the desk. Dr. Leo Vance. Mark's mouth fell open, but no sound came out. His breath caught. His heart might have stopped for a second. He was seeing the ghost of his past, now sitting in a seat of power, holding his life at the tip of a pen. The silence in the room was so heavy that the ticking of the wall clock sounded like a gavel. Mark stared at Leo's face with a vacant expression, as if his soul had just been sucked out. Bella, sitting beside him, was also gaping. She looked back and forth between Leo and Mark, recognizing the undeniable resemblance between them. "El Leo!" Mark's voice came out like the squeak of a trapped mouse. You're Leo." Leo didn't answer. He just stared straight into Mark's eyes with a cold, piercing gaze, letting Mark digest the bitter reality on his own. Mark tried to get up from his chair, but his knees were shaking so violently that he collapsed back down. His thin, trembling hand reached out, trying to grasp the strong figure before him. "It's me, son. It's your father," Mark whispered, his eyes welling up. Not with tears of remorse, I was sure, but with tears of fear and manipulation. "My God, you're all grown up. You became a doctor. My son became a doctor." The words "my son" slid from his mouth as if he had any right to Leo's success, as if he had paid for his tuition, as if he had driven him to school every morning. In reality, he was the one who had thrown that son onto the street. Leo brushed away Mark's hand as it tried to touch the hem of his white coat. The movement was sharp, full of rejection. "Don't touch me," Leo said firmly. "Your hands are filthy." Mark pulled his hand back as if he'd been electrocuted. "Leo, it's your father, son. Your biological father. Your own flesh and blood. Don't you recognize me? We used to play horsey, remember?" I snorted with disgust. Play horsey. That probably happened when Leo was 2, before Mark got busy with his affairs and started hating his son's disability. "I remember," Leo answered. "I remember everything. I remember you saying my leg was disgusting. I remember you throwing divorce papers in my mother's face. I remember you kicking us out in a thunderstorm. My memory is crystal clear, Mr. Peterson." Mark's face turned pale. He realized the long-lost father tactic wasn't working. He switched to the suffering father tactic. "Forgive me, son. I wasn't myself back then. I was stressed. I had a lot on my mind. But look at me now." Mark pointed to his bandaged foot and his gaunt body. "I'm sick, son. I need your help. You're a doctor, right? The Hippocratic Oath says you have to help everyone, right? Especially your own parent." Leo smirked, a terrifying smile. He picked up Mark's charity care form. "A parent?" he repeated. "Since when were you my parent? For 18 years you vanished. No child support. No phone calls. No birthday wishes. And now that your kidneys have failed and your money is gone, you suddenly claim to be a parent?" Leo stood up. His tall frame loomed over Mark, who sat pitifully. "So you're my father?" Leo asked with a mocking tone, one that perfectly mirrored Mark's tone in the lobby earlier. "Ugh. I'd be ashamed to have a sick-looking father." That sentence hit Mark like a bolt of lightning. His eyes bulged. It was a perfect reversal of every insult he had ever thrown. He used to be ashamed of his disabled son. Now his son was ashamed of his sick father. Karma had come full circle. You're a disgrace, Leo." Bella suddenly shrieked, either because she couldn't stand her husband being insulted or because she feared her source of medical funding was about to disappear. "He's your father. Without his sperm, you wouldn't exist. You have to be respectful. Sign that paper. We don't have any money." Leo shifted his gaze to Bella. His look grew even colder. He picked up another sheet of paper from a stack on his desk. "No money?" Leo read. "Mrs. Bella Peterson. Let's look at the bank transaction records our hospital's legal team managed to track down. Last month, you sold a house in an upscale neighborhood for $200,000. 2 weeks ago, you sold an SUV for $40,000. Last week, you cashed out a certificate of deposit worth $50,000. Bella's face turned beet red. She stammered. That was to pay off debts. "What debts?" Leo countered. "Our records show no major debt payments. The money was transferred to your personal account at another bank. You're saving it for yourself, while your husband is forced to beg with a charity form here." Mark turned quickly toward Bella, his eyes wide with fury. What, Belle? You said the money was gone to pay suppliers. You said we were totally broke. Bella panicked. She took a step back. Don't listen to him, Mark. He's lying. He's just trying to turn us against each other. The data doesn't lie, Mrs. Peterson. I stepped forward again. We have the transfer receipts. You're getting ready to leave Mark, aren't you? You know he's going to die soon, so you secured his assets. You want to be a rich widow while your husband rots in some rundown hospital. You bastard, Bella! Mark screamed. He tried to hit her, but his body was too weak. He could only swing his arm wildly in the air. You tricked me. I left a good wife for you, and now you rob me blind. It's your own fault for getting sick. Bella screamed back, her mask completely off. I'm tired of taking care of you, changing your bandages every day, the rotten smell, the bedwetting. Your money is gone, Mark. You're just a burden. If I had known, I never would have married you. A fight broke out in the room. The husband and wife who had once united to destroy my life were now tearing each other apart like wild dogs over a bone. Leo and I just watched with our arms crossed. It was a deeply satisfying sight. Enough! Leo boomed, his voice thundering, stopping their brawl. He held the charity care form in both hands. I don't care about your domestic drama. My decision is final, Leo said. Mark turned back to Leo, his eyes full of hope. Son, Leo, please. Forget this snake of a woman. I'll divorce her. I'll come back to your mother. We can be a family again. Please, sign the paper. I need dialysis. I'm in so much pain. Mark was sobbing, mucus running from his nose. He was truly pathetic. Leo looked at the paper in his hands. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he tore the paper in half. The sound of ripping paper was deafening in the silent room. Mark's eyes nearly popped out of his head. No! What are you doing? Leo tore it again and again until the form was nothing but tiny scraps of trash. He dropped the pieces to the floor, right in front of Mark's worn-out shoes. Your application is denied, Leo said coldly. This hospital is not a charity for traitors. And I, Dr. Leo Vance, refuse to treat a patient who has no ethics and no conscience. You're killing me, Mark whispered, trembling. You're killing your own father. You died to me 18 years ago, Leo replied without a hint of doubt. The moment you murdered my childhood, you also murdered your rights as a father. Feel free to find another hospital. But I guarantee you, with a medical record this bad and without a penny to your name, no one will take you. Leo pressed the intercom button. Security, please come to my office now. There's a disturbance that needs to be removed. Yes, doctor, the voice from the intercom replied promptly. Mark slid from his chair. He fell to his knees on the floor. Amid the shredded pieces of his shattered hope, he tried to hug Leo's legs, the same legs he once mocked. Forgive me, son. Forgive me. Don't kick me out. I'm afraid to die. Leo stepped back, not allowing even the slightest touch. His face was as hard as stone. He had shut off all compassion for this man. Stand up, Leo said. Save your energy for the walkout. You're going to need it. 2 burly security guards entered the room. Escort them out, Leo commanded, and make sure they don't disturb the other patients in the lobby. The guards immediately lifted the limp Mark. He struggled, screaming my name and Leo's. Eleanor, forgive me. Leo, my son, don't do this. I'm your father. His voice faded as he was dragged down the hall. Bella ran after them, not to help, but because she was afraid of being arrested too. She didn't even glance back at her husband being dragged away. The door closed. Silence once again filled the room. I looked at Leo. His strong shoulders slowly slumped. He let out a long sigh, as if releasing a heavy burden he had carried for half his life. He looked at me, his eyes glassy, but there was a smile of relief on his lips. It's over, Mom? He said softly. I walked over to him and hugged him tightly. Not yet, son. This is just the beginning of their destruction. But our part, yes, our part is victorious. I felt my son's body tremble slightly in my embrace. No matter how strong he was, kicking out his own biological father was still an emotional act. But he did what had to be done. He broke the toxic chain that had bound us for so long. Downstairs, the real drama was about to begin. Mark was about to be made a public spectacle as he was dragged out, and I couldn't wait to see that final act. The elevator descended at a moderate speed, taking us back to the ground floor. I stood beside Leo. My son's face was still tense, his jaw set, but his eyes were much calmer than before. Behind us, 2 other security guards stood ready. Even though Mark and Bella had already been taken down by the first security team, we were prepared. "Are you ready for the circus downstairs?" I asked quietly. Leo nodded firmly. "I've been ready for 18 years, Mom. Today, we end it all. I don't want any ghosts of the past haunting us anymore." The elevator chimed and the doors slid open. The sound of a commotion immediately hit our ears. The normally quiet hospital lobby had turned into a chaotic scene. A crowd had formed a circle in the middle of the room. Mark's screams echoed off the luxurious marble walls. "Help! Help me! There's a crazy doctor in here!" Mark yelled. Leo and I stepped out. We didn't approach immediately. We stood on the steps leading down to the lobby, observing the drama Mark was orchestrating. Mark was lying on the floor, refusing to be dragged out by security. He was thrashing around like a madman. Bella stood at a distance, looking embarrassed and confused, clutching her handbag as if afraid it would be stolen. Hospital visitors, patients, their families, and staff were all watching with curiosity. Some people had even taken out their phones to record the incident. "Listen, everyone!" Mark shouted, pointing toward the elevator, right at us. "The doctors in this hospital have no heart. He's my biological son. I'm critically ill. I need help." But he's throwing his own father out. Where is the justice? Where is the doctor's oath? Whispers began to spread through the crowd. A few older women looked at Mark with pity. After all, seeing a sick old man lying on the floor naturally evokes sympathy. Mark knew that. He was playing his last card, public manipulation. "Ungrateful child," Mark continued, crocodile tears streaming down his face. "I raised him through hardship. I worked my fingers to the bone for him. Now he's successful, and he's forgotten his own parents. He's ashamed to have a poor, sick father." My blood boiled at his lies. He twisted the facts so smoothly. I was about to step forward to shut him up, but Leo's hand stopped me. "Let me handle this, Mom," Leo said. "This is my stage." Leo walked down the steps. His steps were calm and dignified. His white coat fluttered slightly as he walked through the crowd. People immediately moved aside to let him pass. Leo's aura of leadership and charisma was powerful, a stark contrast to the dirty, hysterical Mark on the floor. Leo stopped right in front of Mark. He stood tall, looking down at him. "Stop the theatrics, Mr. Peterson." Leo's voice was calm but carried clearly throughout the suddenly silent lobby. Mark looked up. He saw the phone cameras pointed at him. He felt emboldened. "See, there he is!" Mark yelled to the crowd. "This is my son, Dr. Leo. Look how arrogantly he stands there while his father grovels on the floor. Aren't you afraid of being cursed? Huh?" The crowd grew restless. Some started to jeer at Leo. "Wow, that doctor is terrible, kicking out his own father. You should be ashamed, Doc." Leo remained unshaken. He raised a hand, asking for quiet. Miraculously, the crowd fell silent, waiting for his explanation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Leo spoke loudly and respectfully, "this man claims to be my father. It's true. Biologically, he contributed his sperm. But let me tell you what he did 18 years ago." Mark tried to interrupt. "Don't listen to him. He's a liar." "Silence," I barked from behind, my voice echoing. "Let my son speak." Leo pointed to his own leg. "You see me standing tall? My leg wasn't always like this. I was born with a congenital defect. My right leg was twisted. I couldn't walk normally." Leo stared sharply into Mark's eyes. 18 years ago, during a thunderstorm, this man came home. He threw divorce papers in my mother's face. He said he was disgusted to have a disabled child. He said he was ashamed in front of his friends. He said I was a defective product. And that very night, he threw my mother and me out of our home without a cent, without a change of clothes, in the middle of a torrential downpour. The atmosphere in the lobby became tense. The people who had been jeering were now silent, their gazes shifting toward Mark. "I had a high fever that night," Leo continued, his voice beginning to tremble with emotion. "My mother carried me to a bus shelter because we had nowhere else to go. Meanwhile, this man, He brought another woman into our home. That woman. Leo pointed at Bella, who was trying to sneak away through the crowd. "Stop that woman!" I shouted. 2 security guards immediately blocked Bella's path. Bella shrieked hysterically. "It's not my problem. I don't know anything. Let me go." "That woman was his mistress," Leo said. "They lived a life of luxury built on our suffering. For 18 years, this man never once looked for me. He never sent a single dollar for my food. My mother worked as a janitor to pay for my leg surgery. My mother was the one who fought for me. Alone." Leo looked down at Mark, whose face was now ashen. And now, when his fortune has been squandered by that woman, when his kidneys have failed because of his own lifestyle, he comes here. He's asking me the child he called trash and defective to pay for his treatment for free. He's asking me to forget 18 years of emotional torment. Leo turned to the crowd. "Is that fair? Am I an ungrateful son if I refuse to help the person who tried to destroy my future?" "No!" someone shouted from the crowd. I turned. It was Mr. Henderson, the superintendent from our old apartment building. What an incredible coincidence, or perhaps it was fate. He was there, holding a prescription bag. The old man stepped forward, his face red with anger. "I'm a living witness," Mr. Henderson said loudly, pointing at Mark. "I remember you, Mark Peterson. You're the one who threw Eleanor out that night. I'm the one who found them shivering in the bus shelter the next morning. I'm the one who helped them find a tiny new apartment. The whole building hated you for what you did." Mr. Henderson's testimony was the final nail in the coffin of Mark's reputation. The crowd immediately turned on him. The pity had transformed into fury. "You shameless old man! You're old and you're still evil. Throw him out! Don't dirty this hospital!" The insults rained down. Someone threw an empty water bottle, hitting Mark on the head. Mark covered his head with his hands, cowering like a cornered rat. Bella, seeing the situation escalating, tried to escape again. "Mark, I'm leaving!" "You're on your own." Mark heard her and panicked. "Belle, don't leave me. You have my money. Belle!" Mark tried to crawl after Bella. He grabbed her leg, causing her to fall. They wrestled on the lobby floor, a truly disgraceful sight, scratching and cursing at each other. "Give me back my money, you thief!" Mark screamed. "Your money was spent on your gambling too, you old fossil," Bella retorted, pulling Mark's hair. I watched them with a sense of emptiness. They were once terrifying giants to me. Now, they were just 2 pathetic people destroying each other. There was no more fear, no more heartache, only disgust. "Secure them," Leo ordered the head of security. "Turn the woman over to the police for the asset fraud we're investigating, and get the man off hospital property as far away as possible." 4 guards moved swiftly. They separated Mark and Bella. Bella was dragged toward the hospital's police post, crying hysterically. Mark was lifted up and carried toward the exit. "Leo, Eleanor, don't do this." Mark's howls grew more distant. "I'm sick. My leg hurts. Mercy." His voice disappeared as the automatic glass doors slid shut. The lobby fell silent for a moment before the sound of applause erupted. One person clapped, then another, until the entire lobby was filled with thunderous applause. They weren't clapping for cruelty, but because justice had been served. They were clapping for a son who had successfully defended his mother. Leo didn't smile. He just nodded respectfully to Mr. Henderson and the people around him. He turned and looked at me, his eyes wet. I opened my arms. Leo rushed into my embrace in the middle of that lobby. He cried on my shoulder, not a cry of sadness, but of release. The mountain of weight he had carried since he was 5 years old had finally crumbled today. "You did so well, son," I whispered. "You were amazing." "We won, Mom," he sobbed softly. "We really won." I stroked his strong back. "Yes, we won. Not because we were rich, not because we had positions of power. We won because we held on to the truth, even when the world tried to crush us." That day, in the hospital lobby, everyone witnessed that karma never misses its address. And for Mark, this public trial was just the beginning of the living hell he would have to endure. 6 months later, the scorching sun beat down through the gaps in a rusted tin roof. The air inside the cramped room was stuffy, hot, and foul-smelling. Flies buzzed around a plastic plate of leftover food that hadn't been washed in days. In the corner of the room, on a thin, musty mattress, Mark lay. He could no longer get up. His left leg was gone, amputated at a public county hospital 3 months ago after he was found unconscious on the street by social services. They had taken his leg below the knee, but his suffering didn't end there. The diabetes had attacked his eyes. His vision was now blurry, capable of seeing only dark shapes and faint light. His failed kidneys required dialysis twice a week, the cost covered by the state as an indigent citizen. But the long, exhausting queues for treatment only made him weaker. His body was just skin and bones. His skin was dark and scaly, constantly itching. The handsome, arrogant Mark was gone. All that was left was a piece of living flesh, waiting for death. "Water," he moaned softly, his voice hoarse from a dry throat. No one answered. He was alone. Bella was long gone. Word was she spent a few months in jail for fraud, then disappeared after her release. Mark's friends had all vanished when they found out he was broke. His relatives had cut ties with him long ago because of his past behavior. Mark fumbled on the floor with a trembling hand, searching for a water bottle. His hand knocked it over, and its contents spilled onto the dirty floor. "Oh God," Mark wept, tears rolling down his sunken cheeks. "Why is my life like this? Why?" He remembered the faces of Eleanor and Leo. Their images haunted him constantly. Every time he felt pain, he remembered how he had mocked Leo's body. Every time he felt hunger, he remembered how he had let his wife and child starve. Regret came too late, and it hurt more than his amputation. Faintly, from the old television of the neighbor next door, its sound bleeding through the thin plywood wall, came a news report. Today, the Leo Vance Foundation celebrated the opening of its new rehabilitation center for disabled children from low-income families. The facility was founded by Dr. Leo Vance, an internal medicine specialist, along with his mother, Mrs. Eleanor Vance. Mark's heart pounded. He strained to hear more clearly. In his speech, Dr. Vance dedicated the building to his mother, who fought alone to raise him. The foundation will provide free treatment and therapy, ensuring that no child feels abandoned simply because of their physical condition. The sound of thunderous applause came from the television. Then, Leo's voice, firm and full of authority. "A physical disability is not a disgrace. Poverty is not a sin. The only sin is when we lose our conscience. I stand here today because of a mother who never gave up. Thank you, Mom." Mark covered his face with a smelly pillow. He wailed, a gut-wrenching cry of anguish. He was watching their success from his own personal hell. He saw the son he had thrown away become a hero to so many, while he himself had become unwanted trash. "Leo, Eleanor," he called out between sobs. "Forgive me. I'm sorry." But his voice was swallowed by the silent walls of his squalid room. Karma had imprisoned him in an eternal solitude. Meanwhile, dozens of miles from where Mark wept, the scene was entirely different. A bright blue sky stretched over the grounds of a magnificent new building. A ceremonial ribbon had just been cut. The sweet scent of flowers mixed with the aroma of delicious pastries served to the guests. Hundreds of people were in attendance, city officials, fellow doctors, and disabled children with their parents, their faces beaming with hope. I stood beside the podium, wearing an elegant gold pantsuit. My hair was styled in a neat updo. I watched my son as he stepped down from the stage after delivering a moving speech. He walked toward me, his face radiant, his smile genuine and free. The burden of the past was finally gone. Sarah, who was now the head nurse of the foundation, brought Leo a drink. "Congratulations, doctor. That speech was incredible." "A lot of people were moved to tears," Sarah praised. "Thank you, Sarah." "This is all thanks to our team's hard work," Leo replied humbly. Leo then turned to me. He took both of my hands. "Are you happy, Mom?" I looked into my son's eyes. They were clear. "So happy, son. I feel relieved. It feels like I can finally breathe freely after holding my breath for 18 years. "Do you still think about him?" Leo asked carefully. He didn't need to say the name for me to know who he meant. I paused for a moment, reflecting on my feelings. Did I still hate Mark? Hatred requires energy. I no longer had any energy to spare for that man. All that was left was indifference. He had become an irrelevant part of the past. The heaviest punishment for someone is not to be hated, but to be forgotten, to be considered non-existent. No, I answered with a sincere smile. I don't think about him anymore. He got what he chose, and we got what we fought for. A little boy in a wheelchair approached us. He held out a single rose. His legs were small and frail, similar to Leo's condition years ago. Leo immediately knelt down, bringing himself to the boy's level. "This is for you, doctor," the boy said shyly. "Thank you for making this place. My mom says I can learn to walk here." Leo accepted the flower, his eyes glistening. He gently stroked the boy's head. "Yes, buddy. We'll learn together. You can do it. You have to be a strong boy, okay?" "Okay, Doc." I watched the scene with a full heart. The vicious cycle had been broken. Mark had passed down pain and rejection, but Leo was breaking it by giving love and acceptance to other children like him. The best revenge is not to destroy your enemy, but to become everything your enemy could never be: useful, loved, and happy. A gentle evening breeze blew, lifting the edge of my scarf. I looked up at the vast sky. Somewhere up there, God must be smiling, seeing his plan unfold perfectly. The suffering of the past was a bitter fertilizer, but it had grown a sweet and sturdy tree of life. I, Eleanor, and my son Leo now stood at the top of that tree. We would never look down again. "Come on, Mom," Leo said, taking my hand. "The guests are waiting for us for lunch." "Let's go," I replied. We walked together toward a bright future, leaving the dark shadows of the past to rot in their solitude. Life goes on, and this time we were the ones at the wheel.